Welcome back to the Practically Pastoring Podcast. My name is Frank, and I am glad that you are here. It is no longer Easter Sunday. It is the Monday after, and today's episode, we're going to do something a bit different. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about Easter. We're going to talk about...
I thought you meant Pope Francis.
No, we're not going to talk about Pope Francis.
I have no idea what that is about.
He died.
He's dead, Jeff.
Oh, wow.
Died.
I had no idea.
Kind of a big deal.
I went to bed last night.
I'm Protestant. I don't know.
All of like my doom scrolling stories where the Pope met with J.D. Vance and it did not go well. And then this morning I woke up to the Pope is dead, and I just wondered, I mean, our Vice President is a former Marine.
Well, this totally blew through my other joke I was going to make about the events this week. The big event this weekend was going to be WrestleMania, and me and Jeff are going to talk about what we saw. But let's dive into our Easter, post-Easter perspective. But before we do that, I'm Frank. I'm glad that you're here. Up in Baltimore, Maryland, we got Jeffrey Simpson.
Hello.
Down in Sumter, South Carolina, we got Delmar Pete.
I'm glad to be here.
Next to me in the Morning After Ministry Church, we got Andrew Larson.
Is that the name of our church now?
Yeah. And then next to him is Timothy Miller.
Hey.
Hey, guys. Okay, so yesterday was Sunday.
And this, no,
That's a
different
podcast.
At 11.
This is we're gonna do like a little kind of like review of our Easter, and I think it would be good because there's probably a ton of people who listen to this podcast who don't have a staff or other people to kind of process what their Easter was and how it went. And I think as they listen to us talk about our Easter experience, it might be helpful for them to help process that. So with that being said, guys, I would love to check in with all you all and ask some questions about how was your Easter? How was was it fun? Was it good? Were there any big fails? Were there any big wins? Were your outdoor services? Did you have protests? I don't know. What's something you're proud of? What's something you're not proud of? I don't know. I think there's a risk to do anything outside. I was worried at
who's going to show up at Lakeview on that property and protest? I mean,
actually, to be fair, there's so much security. I mean, the security. This is a conversation for another day. But security at Lakeview has been crushing it. Tim has been escorted out.
First of all,
we will talk off the air, but I did have one of our safety team members did step in front of me to avoid an altercation yesterday. We can talk about this off the air, but it actually happened, and they did the right thing.
But it's cool. Lakeview's off a major road, and I'm always wondering, like, someone could just like blare music or honk really loud, and it would like disrupt the service, but it didn't happen. Guys, tell me about your Easter services.
I mean, first of all, you said services plural. I think that's pretty presumptive.
Wow,
Frank,
you just blocked out 90% of the churches in America.
Big church guy.
There's a lot of people listening that did not have multiple services.
Maybe he meant services like y'all's services, like collectively. Let's give him some grace. Yeah, I'll try to help you out.
We do a community sunrise service. There are 5 churches involved. Most of which being right here in downtown Safety Harbor, but the worship leader is Jamie Height from Lakeview Land because he travels with a PA. Come on.
Love him.
He's awesome, and
love him.
We don't have to get another PA. He's the greatest. So my Easter morning started at 5 a.m., which is way earlier than I ever want any morning to start. And it was a great sunrise service because I didn't have to preach this year. I showed up, I did the call to worship, and I shook hands, and it was great. And then we had our regular 10 a.m. worship service here, and it was, as it is every year, the biggest service of the year, and everything went well. I don't think anybody was offended or angry about anything. We had a massive...
Did your church do like breakfast in between sunrise and the main one? I know some churches do that.
The sunrise service is not. It's not an us thing. It is all of the churches do it together kind of thing. So that wouldn't make sense. I think we might have had 15 or 20 of our people at the sunrise service. A lot of the people at the sunrise service are people that are not showing up at any church. In fact, I think there were maybe 4 or 5 people that I saw at the sunrise service that were also at the 10 a.m. service. A lot of people are like, I don't want to deal with the parking and all the visitors. I'm going to go to the sunrise service and then just have a nice day. Okay,
I get it.
Yeah, I definitely get it.
I mean, that's such a good, like, if I have if I have a big family, or I have family in town, or whatever, I'm trying to do something big, go to a sunrise service, and you literally have the entire day open. Where, like, if you go to the 11 o'clock, then you have to fight everybody at Longhorn.
I know, Jesus inconveniences you. Terrible.
It's not Jesus inconveniencing you. It's the Longhorn.
Jeff is still tired. We're going to give him a pass.
I know.
I'm so mad at what happened at Starbucks. That's what's happening.
For sure.
Pope thing's hitting him hard.
Sure.
He is in Baltimore.
He's at a Catholic seminary, too.
I do attend a Catholic seminary sometimes, so.
Anyways. Tim, how about you share what happened at Lakeview?
Of services.
We did have a few services. We have a lot of fun Easter at Lakeview. We have obviously a pretty unique property right on the lake there. So our sunrise service has become a bit of a hit year over year. We had a great turnout, fantastic service. We did have a bit more of a pro PA setup this year than we've had in years past, just because when you have a bigger crowd, the sound's going to have to travel further back. So they actually got there at 3 a.m., which is just like, it just sounds so awful to me.
I would rather stay up till 3 a.m.
No.
They did.
Same, dude.
Because he said, we're watching WrestleMania together. We're not going to sleep tonight. We're just going to pull an all-nighter and then run sound at the services tomorrow. So that's what they did. And
then they slept until WrestleMania.
Exactly.
Again.
Exactly.
Wow,
so we had our sunrise at 7. It was one of those situations where it was 5 till, and I don't know if people thought we'll just show up right when it starts, because we thought we're like, okay, good. We were good on the chairs, and then we had the final wave came in, and I looked over at our first impressions lead, who's our lead deacon, and I'm like, and he's like, on it. He sprinted to the student center, wheeled out all of the additional chairs, and we had to basically use the non-worship center chairs, but every additional chair was needed. So it was cool. We thought we had prepped well, but I guess we'll have to readjust for next year. Sunrise is very popular. And to be fair, Frank, for weeks and weeks, told our members at Lakeview, hey, we want to make room for visitors inside. If you can, please come to the sunrise service to make more room inside. I think they responded.
Not only did that they responded, but like the 2 services that are indoors never, like, I mean, they got full, but
the 11 o'clock we hit past capacity.
Oh, we had to turn people away.
So we didn't turn people away, but we had to bring in the extra chairs from outside and bring them inside.
I didn't know that part.
The 9 o'clock was great. It felt right. It wasn't overcrowded. It felt good. And then the 11 o'clock, I was like, okay, because you don't like a big crowd is fun, but you hate people looking for a seat for a minute or two. It's like, no, like I don't want people to be like, this is
an awkward experience.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that was just one of those things.
Do you employ ushers?
We had at least a dozen who were like, there was people up front holding up numbers like, we have this many chairs here, this many chairs. And once the front rows fill up, then because that's typically the last rows to fill up. So once the front rows filled up, then it was go get the chairs and just squeeze them in anywhere we can.
Here's the thing about Lakeview's sunrise service. First of all, they have a pro photographer who's a member of their church who says, let me volunteer and just take pictures. So the pictures are awesome always.
Yep.
But it's really ruined me for looking at other sunrise service pictures. We are fortunate in Safety Harbor in that our sunrise service is not in our parking lot. We have it on the waterfront. So
it's beautiful.
It's right on the bay.
It's where it should be.
It's awesome.
Yep.
The church I served at previously does their sunrise service in the church parking lot.
So are you saying the parking lot photos aren't quite as compelling as
the Lutheran church where my son goes to middle school? They do their sunrise service. Now, the church I served at previously, it was at least like a grassy field parking lot.
Yeah, that's fine.
So it looks, outsidey, but there's still like a road and a preschool building behind you.
Sure.
And then the other one I was sending you a picture of yesterday, it's just a parking lot. Like you're having a chair over a parking stop. The Lakeview Sunrise Service venue might be the best that there is.
I texted the team last night, specifically our volunteers, just to thank them because they put in a lot of work to pull that off, and it was beautiful and meaningful, and hopefully had a lasting impact on the people that were able to attend. It was awesome.
Delmar, tell us about what your church did on this.
Well, Frank, we did have multiple services, so that's just like you guys. That's our busiest day of the year. We didn't do sunrise, so I liked it because that brings back all like I was one course of Just As I Am from being IFB. So if you grow up in a little tiny church, you do a sunrise service. I would like to do one, but we had two services again, and I will tell you what was kind of struck me off is we had one service at our regular service time. And normally that one, everybody traditionally would go to the service they go to. But we had another one, which was an hour and a half earlier, and that one seemed to have more people. I don't know if any of y'all have any off service times, but we had an off service time and it was more attended than the regular service time. I thought that was an interesting observation. But our service went great. We, people come on Easter, so our service looks a little bit different. Normally when we sing and stuff, it's we leave the lights on and everything, but just given the nature of how we started the service every day, we had the lights down, which is kind of hard to do at Lakeview, right? If the lights are down at Lakeview, everybody's still up. So, but I'll be honest, I don't even know if y'all have noticed, but if y'all noticed, even in the trends, I think our people are responding more when it's not super dark in the building. So we had, like I said, we had the two services.
We have no choice.
Yeah. We had to do the usher thing as well. And what I did a little bit different is our service ended. It was really awkward because we ended with a song. And then after the song, we were going to do baptism, do one more song. And I guess because it was a little bit different, and this is just something I've learned about, like when you break the flow of the normal, when we ended with the song, a lot of people thought the service was over. So I stood at the back of the door and I was like, hey, yo, we still have baptisms in another service, because you always get the early leavers. Well, we do anyways, the early leavers. And I had to direct them back to their seats. That was a little bit awkward. But it was good, man. Baptisms, fellowship music, multiple services. One thing I really love is our worship person. They built a cross and put it out front, and they wrapped it in like black chicken wire, and everybody was encouraged to bring their own flowers. So this picture of this instrument of death was turned into this. I mean, in the end, it was beautiful. It was a cross. Everybody was getting photos in front of it. And what I loved is, I don't know about you guys, sometimes you put a lot of prep into like the way the space looks, the way the sanctuary looks. This was really simple setup. We already had the cross, just put that on it and encourage people to bring it. Of course, we had extra flowers set aside for people who didn't get the memo or first timers, but that seemed to go over really well. And what I loved, and there might be something in this, is people stayed around church a good while after it was over, because we had this thing out front where people were doing something together. I really like that. Having that opportunity for fellowship on Easter is so important, because how many people just come for that one time, or they're visiting for the first time on Easter? So we had a good bit loitering around the church afterwards. So I feel like that was a win. I got to give it up to the worship people for that.
Our Easter service was not very much different than a typical service for us. I mean, we had more people. We probably had 25 or 30 more people, which for a church of 50, that's a lot of extra people. Some extra kids. My wife and kids were in Florida, actually, at Tim's church. They were visiting family for the last couple of weeks. So,
Frank's church.
That's
tries to pretend on social media that he doesn't work there.
Yeah, Frank is the pastor of another church that doesn't have people yet, so
that doesn't exist and has not filed.
I knew you
it exists online.
That hasn't filed a 501c3 yet, but whatever. He's the pastor.
You did it to yourself, buddy.
I'm also the king of Andrewtown, so whatever. It's cool. We can make up titles.
Just make an Instagram account and it's real. That means that the head of our children's ministry was gone as well. So we had a lot of other people running stuff. They did great. And we had a few new things, just thinking about visitors. So we had we created just a simple 1-page sheet of like kids ministry FAQs for first timers. Where do I go? How do I register? What time do the kids get in and out of service? All that stuff. And so that was good. We did a Good Friday service. It was dark and somber like it should be. And I even had some people commenting about, so we do Scott Erickson's Stations in the Street. It's like an art display. We've done that for a number of years. We had them up around the building, and then we had some pretty melancholy sounding ambient music playing, and people commented about how uncomfortable it made them, which made my little heart happy, because that's what we were going for Good Friday. And then, we had a lot of guests and stuff. I just got a text from somebody like literally just now saying, hey, I'm new and I want to get baptized, and I have no idea who it is or how they got to the church, but I'm going to text them back. So that kind of stuff is cool. But we intentionally try not to do too much extra things so that the next week when they come back, it's not like, a downer. Especially in a small church, it can be really easy to go way over the top for one Sunday and then realize you don't have the manpower to do that every week. So, we got some lilies and we had people took pictures, family pictures, but that it was just pretty much a normal service. It was like 4 songs and a sermon, and a couple different prayers than we normally pray that were special for Easter. But we're back into Sermon on the Mount next week. So
I do think that's a good take. We also tried to keep the service order basically the same.
Yeah.
Like at Lakeview, I had the same thought process of I don't want to do anything that's just so out of the norm that if someone were to come back next week, they'd be like, this is nothing like what we did last week. Even in the sermon, I was intentional about picking a text, sticking in that text, and then walking through it verse by verse, just like we would if we were doing a book of the Bible, but doing it on Easter Sunday. That way I could say, hey, this is actually what we do every week. We're just in a different book of the Bible right now. So that way they get the feel of what we do.
We had a visitor who isn't a real visitor. They've got roots here, but are required by employment to be at another church, and said, that's not our church, what they were doing yesterday, so we wanted to come here because
really
it was they rented this giant production thing and that's just not what we wanted to do. And so I get that.
Did any of y'all have like a roller coaster on stage that you rode around?
We didn't. Oh man, fit. We tried to. We showed the video and everybody put on. We gave everybody VR glasses so they could feel like they were.
Oh, good,
on the
good,
so
dude.
That was good.
Did you get on a ladder?
We do not do lilies because our worship leader is like very, very allergic to lilies, and so her throat will close up if there are lilies on stage. So we had hydrangeas and then the palms from last week.
Hydrangeas are pretty though.
One of the hydrangeas died in the night, but so Shirley and I got in here after sunrise service, and it was like drooping over and dying. And she's like, "Oh, what are we gonna do?" And I had seen on TikTok about putting hot water in a drooping plant, and so we should have had a stop motion camera or a time lapse camera on this hydrangea, because at 8 a.m. when we got in here, it was like wilted and dead. And at about 3 minutes before the service started, we're like, "Oh, I think we're good to actually keep it up there." And there was another resurrection we celebrated, and it was of a hydrangea from Lowe's.
Nice.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah, about half of our lilies weren't open yet, so people took them home, and I assume planted them, but it's always a letdown.
They're probably on that little windowsill over the kitchen sink. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
Frank, I thought you had a really interesting idea. I don't know if you saw the video, but you kind of did this like interview thing at Lakeview and kind of asked, what does Easter mean to you? So where'd you come up with that? I had no idea you were doing it. You're like, I've got this idea. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Let's roll with it.
Yeah.
Where'd that come from?
I think I was just trying to think of like an idea of like, we were talking about this earlier, is like, how can we make what happens on Sunday morning live through the week beyond the Sunday morning? And I was thinking of like, there's so many people here. Everyone looks good. Like everyone's families are dressed up. People are excited. Also, it's a sunrise service, so you're kind of like hitting golden hour.
You got the magic light. Everybody's pretty.
So I was like, hey, I have a really simple question that like, even if you're not good in front of a camera, you can say one word or 3 words or a sentence. And I kind of just went around. I had one of those Rode wireless microphones and DJI mic. Oh, it was DJI mic, yeah. And my iPhone. And I just made sure I had enough memory to be able to record a bunch of stuff. And I just went around and I said, hey, would you be willing to answer the simple question? What does Easter mean for you? And I'm looking for like one word, a phrase, or a sentence, nothing more than that. And I kind of just ran around the whole church, especially with the
you were nonstop all day.
Especially
you might have ran more than I did.
Especially because I got a lot of steps yesterday. Because there was an hour between services, I had like more time. Also, Tim, your sermon was like 24 minutes. Mm-hmm. Like that was
intentional. Like every Easter it's sub 30, sometimes 25 minutes.
Wow, it was impressive. So I did that, and I was really worried because I got 80 clips, and I was like, man, this is gonna be a 10-minute video, and it ended up being like 90 seconds, which is like the perfect for an Instagram video. Cool. And it was really fun. I mean, the hardest part was going through all the footage to make sure I can like group them together, but it was a super simple video that I was able to make, and I think the people of Lakeview really appreciate it.
It was a huge win.
I have now I want to, instead of reviewing it, I want to kind of do a little bit of a perspective. Looking back, is there anything that you did do that you would do differently? What do you feel like Jeff, you said that like your services are very similar to your normal Sunday services. I mean, Andrew, Jeff, I guess Del too. Do you guys feel pressure to do what the larger churches are doing? Like, I mean, Tim and I were talking about how Lakeview is growing in spite of the fact that there aren't like gimmicks happening, and there wasn't like a big wall to take pictures in front of. Obviously, there's a beautiful lake, so that's already beautiful there.
Helpful.
But there's no theatrics. Like there wasn't the big Easter egg hunt, which we could have done.
That's probably why it's growing. Just saying.
I mean, but the reality is there's a lot of other churches in the area doing a lot of interesting things, and Lakeview's not doing that. But do you guys? Let's start with this question. Like, do you guys feel pressure from neighboring churches or within your own church encouraging you to do stuff to be more like the churches in the area?
I could not possibly care less what other churches are doing, bro. No, I don't feel any pressure from that. It might be too far. Like I might be cynical to the point where but no, my congregation, there's no pressure like that at all. In fact, like what Del said is true. Like I think if I did more over the top stuff, they would be like, "What are we doing here?" To the point where like I don't even really. I wore just like khakis and a button-up shirt like I normally do. We're just. The people that are in this neighborhood and the people that are part of our church are just like not impressed with that stuff. So, over the years, I have actually let go of more and more and more of the like stuff that I came here with that like we need to do things. Now we still try to do things excellent and look nice, but like, I'll give you an example. There were years past where for me to put out a like info about us, like flyer, I would have wanted to go get it full color printed, glossy, nice looking. Now I just print 2 on an 8.5 by 11 and cut it in half. And it's like just as effective. Literally is no more or less effective than doing all that. So that's a small example. Now we still have color wash lights in the back of the stage. We do, but we're just not trying to be what we're not. We're a small neighborhood church. And unless God does something crazy and gives us a bigger building, and we're literally landlocked in this property, there's nowhere to do anything extra. We're going to be a small community church of maybe 100, 150 people at most. So that's just who we are. And I don't want to do anything different than that for Easter and try to look like something we're not. One of the things that people say about our church that's kind of like related to this, I guess, a little. I've heard this from my wife told me that one of the children's workers told her this. And then I've actually heard it from one other person is that for a small church, we use technology really well, which, makes me happy. Because that allows us to do things at a lower cost. For instance, like we don't have a printed bulletin at all and haven't for 8 years. And no one blinks an eye at that. So no, I don't. I mean, in our congregation, there's no pressure to even the Easter egg hunt. I mean, we spent $40 on an Easter bunny outfit and somebody volunteered and threw it on and it was a big hit. Other than, we don't really do big things for Easter like that.
The thing that I would do differently, like I left yesterday saying, man, the thing that I would do different is that I wouldn't have gone so hard in years past. Because whether, the life has changed a little bit because of me kind of having another job that's taken a lot of hours right now. And it was a weird family week for the Larsons. My wife is a teacher and had a student pass away last week. So it's been a weird and heavy week. And so there's a lot of things that I had done in past years to go all out really big on Easter week that we just didn't do for one reason or another this week. And we were up about 20% in attendance. And I was like, oh, so like all of the things that I did previous years, but I guess it didn't actually do anything besides just take me away from my family because it didn't bring more people in. Our attendance is right about where we are week to week last year, and yet Easter was bigger. And we didn't rent a golf cart to get people to park farther away. They just walked, and that's okay. There are 3 of the 5 biggest churches in Pinellas County within a 5-minute drive of us. And so if you want big and flashy and production, you can have that. And we're not in competition with those churches. We are on the same team, serving the same God, serving the same community. We're just reaching different people. And why would we try to reach different people the way that they're reaching the same people? If we were going after the same people, we would try to be doing the same things, but we're not. Jeff, I echo what you say. We are a neighborhood church, and that's who God has called us to be, and that's okay.
I hear that, Andrew, because when we were kind of in the revitalization stages of Lakeview, I remember leading up to Easter, I had a playbook. Like I had a handbook that I would follow from quote unquote the experts. We did the postcards, we did the mail outs, we did the social media blasts. I mean, you name it, like we were doing it this many weeks out. We were doing the sponsored posts. And this year we did nothing. I didn't even print out a handout card. This is the first year we've never printed out a handout card. And this was by far the highest attended Easter we've ever had. So I'm like, do all those things. I'm sure they matter, but like you said, my week was actually a lot lighter. I had more time with my family. My kids had some time off school, so I was even able to be a dad on Easter Holy Week, which typically I'm not able to be. And I'm like, this is kind of weird. And then we still had the really big Sunday that we love having, and it was a ton of fun, but it was without all the extra stuff on the other end. So
I think part of that is that the three of us, me, Tim, Jeff, we have all been in our roles long enough now that I don't think we are having to work to prove ourselves to our people.
And that could be it.
And I think that's part of it too.
I think early on, you're right. Like there was like the factor of like, I want to make sure everyone knows I'm doing my
young
job.
pastor, and I think that's we're not the young pastors on the block anymore. There's somebody at a church nearby younger than each of us.
Who?
I don't know. But
not where I am, dude.
Okay. But I think our people in our communities come to know us well enough.
Yeah.
And
even our Easter banner was like it was like see-through by mistake, and you could barely see our Easter banner this year, which was so funny to me. I was like, oh, no one's gonna know our service times, and yet it didn't matter.
Andrew, I was gonna say this is tied to what you said. In our church, I don't know if it's partly because we're not in the Bible Belt or whatever, but in our church it is unbelievably rare to the point where I can't even remember for a visitor to just show up without already knowing somebody. So the culture of our church is that a visitor shows up, but they came with somebody. So there is less of a like the bar of like impressing them and getting them to stay is just almost non-existent. They're there because they're with their friend. And so I want things to be clean, and I don't want it to be falling apart. And I have info about our church on an 8.5 by 11, but it's still with a nice font, and it is printed nice on our own printer. But I'm not thinking it's a person who just walked in here off the street, who just moved here, who has no context. And honestly, the visitors that we do get that don't know somebody already are like alliance people. They've already had some kind of connection. It is just exceedingly rare, I would say almost non-existent for us to get a person to walk into our church who is a seeker, who doesn't already isn't on the arm of somebody or isn't coming to see somebody or doesn't. I mean, a ton of the visitors that we get now a lot of them are connected to me somehow through my involvement with the school or coaching or something. Like there's just like a network of people that have come because of that. And it's the same thing with like our youth guy. He's very involved with Little League nearby, and we have a couple families who've come because of that. And so those families are not showing up like impressed with your presentation. They're there because they have a relationship with somebody, and then you just don't want to put any roadblocks in their way. So that's kind of my mindset now is not like I'm impressing you to get you to come, but it's just I want it to be like distraction free. So like it's going to be excellent enough that it's not like you coming in going, oh my gosh, I'm not leaving my kid there. No, like I want you to feel comfortable. We have, we use technology well. Everything's pretty clean and nice, and we're not like a rundown old beat up building. That's not what got you to come. What got you to come is a relationship with a person, and now we're just not going to put any roadblocks in the way.
Well, yeah, I think you nailed it, Jeff. It's the culture of your church that has a lot to do with this. It has the culture of your church and your ecclesiological theology about how you run it. I know if we were to do mega church things, it would induce a repulsion in our church because a lot of our people have been hurt by those kind of churches. So any kind of a semblance to that, and we will actually get emails. Hey, please don't go down that path. We're not going to become like that church. So the culture of your church dictates a lot of how you do even Easter. That's one of the reasons why we do not go over with the hokey stuff. And I think Lakeview is a good example of where the church is now. People have seen, like, we're over that. Like a lot of the church is over that. I mean, if we weren't over it, there wouldn't be entire, Instagram pages dedicated to how cringe it is to watch it. So I think that it's a blessing. It's a blessing because we got caught up in this thing collectively as the church. And I think now What's the big deal is, are you proclaiming the gospel? Is there being community? Can I find a home here? And can I be stewarded? Can I be faithful? And can I serve? So I think if a Sunday morning someone shows up now and they're like, wow, there's people serving and I'm hearing a clean message and there's no gimmicks. Like, this is not a car salesman. For us, in our context, at least, that's the way we do it, because anything outside of that would be received as manipulative by the older generation and cringe by the younger generation.
I would say, too, we talk about church culture a lot, and this is particularly true in the size churches we are. After a certain amount of time, I don't know when that time is, maybe 5 years, 7 years, something like that, the culture of your church is a reflection of you as a leader. That's just the reality of it. It trickles down. So the focus for you is not on creating this like show or this veneer of the focus for you as a leader is like on the health of your own soul and your own emotional life and your own connection to God, because that stuff is just going to rub off in the way that you lead, in the way that you think about things, in the way that you encourage. One of your roles as the pastor is to be the first one to say like, hey, we should try this, or let's do this. You're kind of like the first idea guy a lot. And so if all of your ideas are, trying to impress other people and stuff, that's going to trickle down and rub off.
On stage.
Yeah.
So a question that I have for you guys, and as we get close to wrapping this episode up, is how do you measure a successful Easter service? And then I guess help people listen to how can we reframe Easter success around what actually matters, which I'm going to make this caveat because as I'm listening to you guys, like, I don't want to be the mega church apologist, but like, I also don't know if like
there's a whole lot of people getting saved at mega churches.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like I'm
not knocking them.
I want to make sure that like, because I sometimes it's really easy to be like, oh yeah, they're just like focusing on the wrong thing, and like we just heard Jeff talk about buying a $40 Easter bunny costume. Like, I don't necessarily think of like that stuff is necessarily like a bad thing, as long as like we're leveraging it towards what actually matters, not necessarily like making that like a bait and switch situation. Does that make sense?
I think Dell's point is still true. Like it's church context. Like, know who you are as a church.
Yeah.
Don't try to be something.
Some are of Paul, some are of Apollos. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like, this is not a right or wrong thing.
Yeah.
But it would be wrong if I spent 85 hours this week on one service and abandoned my wife and kids. And so,
for sure, there are small church stereotypes that we could go to town on and are pretty funny too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
it's just
they just wouldn't get the hits on Instagram.
Yeah.
True.
There's not enough there's no meme pages for small churches.
Because the people that go to small churches aren't on Instagram. They're too old, They
don't have a live feed or something. Yeah. What's the measure?
If they have a live feed, there's a timestamp on it because they didn't play with the camera settings. That happened to one of our
or there's
friends.
a little picture-in-picture that does the lyrics up in the upper right corner.
That's cute.
There it is.
Yeah.
That's the one.
It's funny. How do you measure a successful Easter service in your context? Like what like, if I guess first question is,
2 weeks later,
do you feel like your Easter service is a success? And then 2, what's the measure of that?
I think for me, one of the measures is obviously people returning, but also a bigger measurement where I want to focus is like, how are my main volunteers doing in the next couple of weeks? Are they completely burned out and are like, man, I need a break? That's not success to me. One of the things, I don't know why it's a focus for me or it's just in my mind all the time, but like, I really try to make sure that the people who are running ministries understand that like they are part of the care of the church too. They're not just like a robot cog in a wheel that puts on a show for other people to show up and participate in. Like, you're the point too. So like, yeah, you might be running children's ministry, but like, I'm just as concerned about your spiritual and emotional health as I am about the kids that you're serving. So don't burn yourself out in order to make a good, have a good Easter experience for the little kids. You're just as important as that. So a successful Easter service for me would mean next week, this coming Sunday, my volunteers are feeling just as healthy and rested as they typically are and ready to serve our kids, because we all know it's faithfulness over a long time that produces fruit.
Agree.
I agree.
Look, for us, I want to hear from my elders. I want to hear from my staff, and I want to hear from some of my key members, like just their experience of the Easter weekend. I've already talked to, I don't know, maybe a dozen or two of them. to get some feedback. And that's kind of how I measure a successful weekend. It's not by the numbers. I know on my social media, I'll talk about, the high attendance because it's fun. Like, I think we should celebrate that. Like, when a bunch of people show up, why would we not celebrate, a lot of people coming to church and hearing the gospel? Like, I'm all for celebrating a high attended Sunday, but I want to know that it was meaningful and it had some impact, not just because we had a bunch of people, but because of our people who felt like, yeah, this was a really meaningful Sunday. And hearing people reach out and say, man, I'm so glad I was able to bring my family to Lakeview. Like, that's cool. They're like, we had a great time, and I'm really glad that we got to be a part of what happened on Sunday. Like, to me, that's huge. And then, like what you said, Jeff, then the next part is a couple of weeks later, where I'll follow up with the people who did put in a lot of hours to check on their health and see how they're doing. So, there's a couple of parts here. One is an immediate Sunday night where I was literally texting people, just asking them, hey, how are you? How did things go?
I was busy Sunday night.
And then, a couple of weeks later, we'll check in. On Wednesday, we'll have a full recap with our staff and get some perspective. Because I don't honestly know everything behind the scenes. When you're on stage for 3 services, there's a lot happening that you don't see. So I want to hear from the staff and see, were there some behind the scenes things that fell through the cracks that we missed that we can tighten up a little bit for next year, or for the next, big service that we have that we can just get a little bit better at. And then how are you guys doing? And I also have some encouragement for the staff. I have some personal text messages that I got from people who said, hey, this is why Sunday was meaningful to me. And like, I'm not going to share those on the air, but in staff meeting on Wednesday, I'm going to share those with the staff to make sure they know, yeah, you put in a lot of work and here's why it mattered. Like, lives were literally impacted in a significant way because of the amount of work and because of what God did through your sacrifice. So I want to make sure our staff knows that the effort was worth it.
So, everyone's talked about like 2 weeks later, follow up and stuff like that. One last practical question for you guys is, what is your follow up? Like, do you guys have like a comeback strategy in terms of like a service to come back to, a sermon series, or are you guys like following up on connect cards or decisions? Like, what are you guys doing?
I mean, we just talk about the sermon series that starts the next week, which for us is we're back into Sermon on the Mount. So we just try to make it an easy on-ramp. And then we are going to, in the next week or two, offer small group again on Thursday night. So, but we don't have a ton of different stuff that happens right after Easter. So it's just a connection thing. And we talked about this a few weeks ago, but we do have a new texting setup called Glue, which actually we used a little bit yesterday. Frank tested it out for me. I was like, who's awake at 7:45 in the morning on a Sunday on Easter? Probably Frank. So I did a thing where I gave more of an apologetic sort of Easter sermon where it talked about like the resurrection and why it matters. And so I tested this out with Frank, but we put a phone number up on the screen, and if you have a question, you can text it in. And we got a couple of questions in that way. And so what's cool about it is those people are now like in our texting database too. And so they'll get like reminders and stuff. But that's something we did to try to have a little bit of engagement.
We did our sermon series. We're actually in the middle of one, but the way the text broke up, the text that we were on made it very easy to do Easter through. And we actually leveraged that as a way to invite them back. Hey, we're in Philippians. We're here today. Come on. Like, you're in it now, so kind of let them feel, at least on my end, it's like, we hope you feel like you're already a part of what's going on if you went to Easter. So that way it makes it like the ice has been broken, come back. And then obviously we do have a connection card, come to the front desk, and we will either call or text those people and just do a follow-up. So, I mean, like I said, we keep it kind of like Jeff, keep it pretty simple. Check on your volunteers. We did get some good feedback last night from our elders and some of the people in the church texting us how they thought the service went. Because I do think, like, we don't live to please them, but we do live to minister to them well. And was it you, Jeff, who said if you're running your volunteers and your leadership into the ground, that's a testament to your leadership. So whenever you're getting unsolicited texts from your leadership, I'm encouraged by that more than anything, because I think all of us have had seasons where we would admit we probably put more into Easter or put it on our leaders more than we should have. So I think this year it seems to be a trend, at least amongst our group, to pull back from that. So that's a good thing in my book.
Yes.
Tim, you should talk about we're having baptisms.
We are. So we're We did strategically plan Baptism Sunday for the Sunday after Easter this year. So every week during our kind of announcement period, Frank's been hitting on, hey, if you're interested in getting baptized, and you did a great job in the Easter opening video yesterday of hitting on that too, Frank. So we've got a couple of baptisms happening next week. So following up Easter with another celebratory Sunday. And Baptism Sunday is always kind of interesting when you have multiple services, because like, when do you do the baptism? So we've just been doing them right after the third service. So then you just kind of brace yourself for, okay, then whoever wants to get baptized plus their family, that's going to be the heavy attended service. So that's kind of how we're doing our follow-up with with Easter Sunday. So we'll do a Baptism Sunday, and I think we're kicking off right back into Corinthians next week, and it's a bit of a dicey passage, so should be fun. We seem to get a lot of good feedback from the more controversial passages when we preach on those, so it'll be a fun Sunday.
Yeah,
we announced a new series because we just finished one last week, and then it was Easter. So but right before the benediction was, hey, we're so glad you're here. Best time to get plugged in is when we're starting a new series, and we have a new series starting next week on prayer. And
you've actually done that for several years in a row.
Yeah, that's kind of we start a new series the week after Easter.
That's good.
And just say it's a good jumping off. And then we're gonna have a Baptism Sunday at the end of that series as well. So we invite people back, knowing that I think we were about 190-ish% yesterday of what we were the week before. And if we're 120% of the week before next week, that'll probably be closer to par than expecting to have everybody that was here yesterday back next week. And that's okay.
Andrew, can I ask you an Easter attendance question? Because I'm curious, because you've been at Safety Harbor now for how many years?
This was my 8th Easter, 2017.
I think people often talk about, don't measure your Sunday attendance by one Easter Sunday.
You compare year over year.
But when you get to year over year, are you now seeing Easter level numbers on a regular Sunday that you saw your first year here?
Oh, more.
That's what I'm saying. So there is a gauge there when you've been at a church for a number of years to say, okay, I get that that's not going to be next week, but that could be 3 years from now. Yeah. So are we prepared for that? Because that's where
that's an issue. I think Easter 2017. So I got hired in March of 2017, but then I was still preaching Easter at my previous church, so I didn't start till a couple weeks after that. But Easter 2017 here was 37 people.
Oh, right.
So
because Easter 2023 is now Lakeview's average every Sunday. Yeah. So I was okay. So if we're 2 to 3 years out from that being our average, are we adequately planning for that?
I think that's a great way to look at it and a great strategy to have, because there are other churches. My previous church, they based everything on what they were on Easter. Hey, we're a church of this many people based on Christmas Eve and Easter numbers. And so then everything that wasn't Christmas Eve or Easter was kind of a letdown.
Right.
And I think that's kind of a better way to gauge it. Hey, here's the impact we have. Here's the reach that we have. If the circles are growing just a little bit time over time, 3 years from now, this could be where we are. Mm-hmm. I think that's a great thought.
Well, that's a good way to wrap up the show. Thank you for listening. Make sure you join our Facebook and Facebook group where we keep these type of conversations going. Want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Church Merch.
Merch for your church.
If you need a shirt, if you need a mug, if you need some sort of swag for your church, Church Merch is the place to go. Look for the link in the show notes. We'll be back next week. Would love for you to continue this conversation and let us know how you're processing your Easter services. Till then, I'm Frank Gill.
I'm Jeff Simpson.
I'm Delmar Pete.
I'm Andrew Larson.
And I'm Timothy Miller.
This is Practically Pastoring. See ya.
Peace. Bye, buddies.